Maybe this morning's sermon has a little bit of an unusual title, but for some of us that's kind of a familiar picture. You know, I had one church that I served back in Kentucky while I was, or just after I finished seminary, that William was a gentleman who was in his 70s and still working 80 hours a week, and so when he'd get into church and relax, you knew exactly what would happen. He would just zonk out, and one day as the people were going out, one guy told me, "Boy, that was a really good sermon. Even William stayed awake this morning." So why does church have to be so boring? Last week, I guess it's been a week and a little bit now, when I went to the preachers' meeting in Salina, Kansas, one of the presenters was a guy named Dr. Stephen Cady. Now, he preached to us or taught a morning class in coat and tie, but normally he works with youth and he wears a Superman t-shirt and does yo-yo tricks while he talks, right? So you know that he is one of these people that is used to keeping youth engaged. He did doctoral research asking young people whether they're bored in church and whether or not they experience God in worship. So you're here, and there's a lot of collective wisdom in this room. So what do you think the results of his worship were? You think young people are bored in worship? Well, yeah, just look there. I mean, you know, his results, first of all, the main result wasn't a surprise to anybody. The parents of young people and youth workers all understand that young people are miserable coming and sitting in church. But there were some things that surprised me. One of them was that young people said, the coin has two sides. They say it's not just young people that are bored in church a lot of times. The old people, as they look around, are sometimes just as bored. The kids that were interviewed said they have to go to church because their parents make them go to church. Can anybody relate to that, PJ? Yeah, okay. Kids, parents make them go to church, and the parents go to church because they understand that there's some benefit in going to church, and they want that for their kids. So the end result, Katie said, is that everybody is kind of bored and miserable together, even the Simpsons. You know, and if you can bore a cartoon, you know that you're in serious trouble there. However, one of the things that Katie asked young people was, what is most boring about church? Just like on this text this person is sending, boring sermon today, pray that we'll all be able to escape soon. Okay, the sermon was the most dreaded part of worship. And one young girl that was interviewed said, you know, I try to pay attention, but about halfway through the sermon, I turn into a zombie, right? Like a lot of us have been in sermons where that's been our experience about halfway through, and our mind just either goes to sleep or someplace else. Or like one young girl texted as Katie was doing his research, "I'm dying, my brain is dying." That's a song now. You can Google it and get it on YouTube. But it's like those are the only lyrics of the entire song, which I think that it must be true. The reason they couldn't come up with better lyrics is because their brain was dead. That's all I can figure on that. So, I, as a pastor, could be very discouraged by Dr. Katie's research, if it wasn't for one thing. He asked the young people, when did you feel God's presence in church? And every single one of them said the same thing. There was this one sermon. Now, I was a lay person before I went into the ministry. I've been where you are. And believe me, not every sermon that I heard really had an impact on my life, but there were a couple that made a huge difference, that changed the direction of my life, and it was a sermon that really primed my pump and got me ready so that when God called me to go into the ministry, I was ready to say, okay, God, I need to investigate this. Let me think about it. But I didn't say no because of that sermon. So sermons can make a huge difference. However, I would say that as a pastor that claims that sermons are boring, like this sister here, enjoying looking at the ceiling, obviously, during the worship service, probably sees an angel up there or something like that. But at any rate, I got distracted there, distracted myself with humor, and at any rate, that criticism of boring sermons really does fall right into my lap, and I take that seriously because I don't want to be boring. I don't want to bore any of you. This morning's scripture, as Jackie read it, says that we're not supposed to give up meeting together, but we're here to encourage one another, and supposed to do that more and more as we see the day of the Lord's return approaching. So God doesn't want us to be bored, right? Everybody would understand that. I mean, God loves us and wants all of that energy and all of our potential to be used for God. God doesn't want us to be bored. So I need your help, right? And I'm going to ask for your help in three different ways as I try to share with you what I think we can all do to help make church not so boring. The first thing is something that all of us can do. Now, most of you know that I wasn't raised in church. I didn't come to the Lord till I was 27, and it was a co-worker who introduced me to Jesus, and two things happened when I really believed and came to accept that Jesus is the Son of the living God. The first thing that happened was that the Bible came alive to me. Now, I hadn't been a Christian, hadn't gone to church, but I was pretty bookish, you might say. And I figured, okay, the Bible is the #1 selling book in the world at that time, and I need to know what's in here. So I tried to read the Bible a couple times before that, and it was just like running into a wall. It was just, I couldn't make sense of what was in there. It just didn't click with me. There's an expression in Czech that means it's just like throwing dried peas against a wall. You know what that's like? It all just bounces back. That was my experience trying to read the Bible before I was a Christian. But once I really accepted that Jesus is the Son of the living God, all of a sudden, the stuff in the Bible made sense. We had a contemporary translation of the Bible, and I started reading it, and wow, everything made sense to me. It all opened up because it was about Jesus. And thank God I started reading in the Gospels, and so those stories really hit home, and I got excited about that. The second thing that happened was that I figured, okay, if Jesus really is the Son of God, I need to do something about it. And so we started going to church, and I really fell in love with Jesus. And so even if things in worship weren't very exciting, you know, I could always kind of pull inside my own mind and talk to the Lord and just worship on my own. And that was never boring for me. So the first thing, if church is boring, we can examine our love relationship with Jesus, because that has a lot to do with how we feel about worship. If our love is not strong, if it's not vibrant, if it's not alive, then church is going to be a boring place, just like it was for me before I was a Christian. Okay, the second thing I'm going to say to the youth, now Addison and Grace aren't here, Caden is here, so especially you young people, if there's something that would be relevant to you, tell me about it. Tell somebody, talk to people about what would make a difference for you. Now, a little bit of a guideline on that, there was one girl in Dr. Katie's research, when he asked her, you know, why sermons seem so boring, she said, well, like they're just like old. That's not helpful. That wouldn't tell me how to preach better or what to do. I mean, it would be like the one guy that said, oh, well, when I do youth services, I do them exactly the same as the services for the adults, except I say awesome 2 or 3 times. That just throwing in those words doesn't make it relevant for young people. Or like the one episode in The Simpsons where this one kid went to a Bible study and he said, you know, man, if I don't hear computer words every 2 sentences, I'm out of here. And so the Bible study leader is talking, and the kid starts to get up and walk out, and the guy says, no, wait, Skype. And so the kid comes and sits back down. Yeah, okay. Well, at any rate, I thought it was funny. But, so, young people, I'm anxious to hear what you think might make sermons more relevant for you, because that might make it more relevant for the adults as well. The third thing that I'm going to ask for your help with, that really is addressed to the more mature members of the congregation, comes from this. Dr. Katie found that young people really weren't bored in youth group, and they felt connected with the other young people that were there. So that connection has a real influence on things. So let me tell you a story. Justin was a member of the youth group at the Meadow Grove Church when I served there many, many years ago. And Justin became a youth pastor, and he sent me a video of his sermon he got to preach for his installation service in that church. Unfortunately, it's not a United Methodist church, but I'm glad God is using him where he is. But Justin, in that sermon, said some stuff that really got my attention. And the first thing was not so much what happened in worship, but what happened right after worship. Because, you know, like we have coffee and cookies out here, that Meadow Grove Church did that. They'd all go down in the basement, and it was kind of a traditional farm church, so all the men went over to one side and had their coffee and cookies, and all the women went over the other side and had their coffee and cookies. Well, Justin, of course, would go and sit with the men, And he said as the men were talking about the issues of the day, one of the men, and one guy in particular, would ask him, "Well, Justin, what do you think about that?" And Justin said, you know, he never felt like he added any huge insights or solutions or offered very much different other than to, you know, say he agreed with one position or another position that they had been kicking around. But what he understood from that was that his thoughts and his opinions mattered to those men in the congregation. They wanted to know what was going on between those ears of his, because a lot of times down in the fellowship hall there, he was the only young person that would come and hang out with the older folks. They wanted to know what he was thinking. So one of the things I think we have to do is find a way to really listen to the opinions and concerns of young people, and to honor that, not just listen to it and then roll our eyes and discount it and just go on, but really listen to what young people are saying. Those men at Meadowgrove found a way to do it, and it made a difference in Justin's life. He knew that he was valuable, he was connected to that congregation, because people listened to him and included him. So, we've got to find a way, and I don't know how you folks do that. One of the things that we kind of have to avoid is what I've seen in some churches, that young people are sort of treated like trophies, where it's fine for the kids to do a program at Christmas or around Vacation Bible School or to help out during fundraisers, but you know, the rest of the time kids are just kind of, you know, go over there and play so we can do real stuff. Somehow we've got to figure out a way to include young people in a way that is meaningful for them. And so, if we can do those three things, I think that that will really help so that church is not boring. And finally, another thing is that we have to understand that church isn't about us after all. And it's not for our entertainment. It's a way of helping us connect with God and remember what God has done for us through Jesus Christ. And so that's what this sacrament of the Lord's Supper is about.